So again, welcome. This is the orientation for specials and electives instructional leaders, aka the SEILs. I hope that you'll all, forgive the pun there. So our norms for this afternoon are here on the screen. Be engaged, assume positive intent, save other work time for another time, and then if you have any tech glitches or anything, please let us know. You can either hop on the line and actually just say so, or there's a little kind of orange circle at the very top of your screen with a sort of speech bubble in it, and that's the chat feature that you can just type any questions into, or if you're having any troubles, feel free to actually use that as well. So I think it's always helpful to sort of start off and let you know who who it is that's actually running things, given that we're all just staring at our laptop screen. So again, my name is Ben Crosby. I was born and raised in northern Wyoming, and I went to sort of mix of public and Catholic schools growing up. Sounds like we had a little dog bark there. From 2007 through 2011, I was a 4-5 teacher at EPACS, and I was the lead. And that's when I actually started with Aspire. In 2011 and 12, I went back to graduate school, and I spent a year just doing my master's, focusing on teacher leadership and policy. And my sort of major focus during school was really on how do we sort of help teachers measure the kind of growth that's actually going on in their classrooms, especially for those grades that aren't actually tested by end-of-year state tests. So art, Spanish, music, drama, PE, technology, all of those things. And then since 2012, I've been at the home office on the teacher effectiveness team, leading a whole bunch of different programs around actually measuring student growth. And it's been a great ride. So now I'd like to have us all actually hop on the line and say who we are. So why don't we actually start off with Ruth, if you could hop on the line, just tell us your name, school, subject, and grade, how long you've been with Aspire, and then just briefly why you actually wanted to become a SEIL this year.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. I work at Alexander Twilight in Sacramento. I teach art. This is my 4th year teaching art there, my 4th year at the school. And I've been teaching art for many years, but this is my first time teaching 8 periods a day on some days. And I wanted to join the team because I felt like assessed in a way that really didn't take into account the different nature of our job, that we see students sporadically, that we teach untested subjects, that we have different kinds of data, if any data at all, and the AIR rubric seemed to always apply, and yet our compensation and our ratings were really being based upon that existed. And also I wanted to connect with other teachers in the same subject or other single subjects, just perhaps try to share best practices. Last year I was a virtual collaboration leader, and that was really great to get to meet with art teachers around California and in Memphis.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruth. Ursula and Rita, do you guys want to hop on next?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. Hi, I'm Rita. I teach K-8 music at BMA. I currently am teaching K-5 general music and middle school guitar. This is my 2nd year with Aspire, 2nd year at BMA. And I wanted to become an SEIL because I think it's really an interesting problem, thinking about evaluating student learning in electives and special classes, kind of given the really unique context in which we teach. And it's really interesting to me, and I think it's kind of a cool problem to tackle. So I'm excited to work on that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, this is Ursula Rodriguez. I'm also at BMA. I've been here for... And this year I'm teaching K through 3. I've taught all of our grades in the past, K through 8. And I'm hoping that this work helps us help teachers with their effectiveness and turns into some kind of situation where special teachers get coaching and support in their instruction.
Very cool. Thanks, Ursula. David, would you like to hop on next?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, my name is David. I work in Aspire Inskip Academy in South LA. It's my second year in Aspire, and I'm very excited about this team. I know we can make a lot of changes to help, all the special subjects have the importance that they deserve. And I think we can make a great impact to improve our jobs.
Excellent. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Who's next? Scooter, I think, would you like to go?
Sure. My name is Scooter Bloom. I currently teach at Ben Holt, my second year at Ben Holt. I did 4 years over at Langston Hughes as well in Stockton, and 1 year I did Port City and Langston Hughes together. All PE, so I've taught 4th through 8th grade. Nice thing about middle school, we have another PE teacher here, and we're always talking about how can we apply what we do to the AIR rubric and how can we improve, and pretty much everything everyone's already said about sharing best practices across Aspire, but I think we got some good ideas. My co-teacher, Mike Merritt, is also on this committee, just couldn't make the meeting today, so we're always talking, so we're real interested in getting out there and hearing what everyone else has to say.
That's excellent. Thanks, Scooter. I see that someone else actually just joined, so we're now at 8, so I want to make sure that they have a chance to actually jump in as well. And I'm sorry, who else hasn't got it blank?
Hi, Ben. This is Greta Bittel.
Hi, Greta. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I just can't log in. I think there's something wrong with whatever the browser is, so I'll keep trying. I'm Greta Bittel. I teach Spanish. I have Eddie Papa at Palo Alto Phoenix Academy. I have been with Aspire for the last 6 years. I have been teaching foreign language for the last 12 years. I'm really excited to be a part of this team. For the last 6 years, we have all been kind of, we're Spanish teachers, 1 or 2 per school, and we all feel like we're an island. So it's a wonderful, I'm so excited to do this with our team and to support and be a so strong group. So thank you so much, and I really am looking forward to doing this with my team.
Excellent, and I am too, and thank you so much, Greta. That's great. I know that Kathleen is maybe having some trouble actually joining. Kathleen, are you on the call with us? Okay, it looks like she's not yet with us, which is okay. Is there anyone else who I'm forgetting?
This is Cynthia.
Cynthia, thank you.
So should I go?
Yes, please. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So my name is Cynthia Restivo, and I work at Rosa Parks and River Oaks. River Oaks is my main site, but I also work at Rosa Parks, and I teach theater and storytelling. And why I wanted to be part of this is that I've done a lot of work with arts educators around the state, and when I looked at the rubric, I felt like it didn't honor at least it didn't honor the art disciplines in a way that I felt like it maybe addressed classroom disciplines. So I wanted to be a part of building a more a rubric that's more applicable to us.
Right. Absolutely. That's wonderful. Thank you, Cynthia. And Kathleen, I think, is still joining. Oh, I think that actually might be her. Kathleen, have you just joined us?
I have. Hi.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome. So we're actually just going around and saying hello. So I'm wondering if you could quickly just say who you are, where you teach, how long you've actually been with Aspire, and then why you joined the SEAL team this year.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm not sure how many we have on board today.
I think we have 7 others, yes.
Awesome. My name is Kathleen Mansonides. I teach at University Charter School in Modesto. I've been with that school since the day they opened in 2000. I teach physical education, K through 5. I also teach intervention math and intervention reading. And since I've been there, I've taught everything full-time, kindergarten through 6th grade on that campus. I have been working hard to try to get some things happening with regards to the specialties, to get some more collaboration going, but also to make sure that our TCPR, alphabet soup, that the things that they're doing to rate us and that the way that we are able to understand how to be evaluated fits with what our job description does and how we go about doing our business of work. So I'm excited to see this happening.
That's excellent. Thank you, Kathleen. And I think that's it. Is there anyone else who has joined or who I may have missed?
I just forgot to say I teach K through 5. That's rude.
Okay, and that's
I missed that little factoid.
No big deal. And that's you, Cynthia, right?
That was rude. That was rude.
Oh, that was Ruth. Okay, thanks, Ruth.
Oh, but I also
Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Cynthia.
Hi.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to actually ask everyone to go ahead and actually put yourselves back on mute for the time being, just so there's less, static on the line. So I'll give you a moment to do that. Excellent. Sounds great. Thank you. Okay, and let's get into it. Okay, so this afternoon, for the next 45 minutes, we're going to spend some time going over the background and the need for this work, which I think a lot of you have just done a great job of, saying yourselves. It seems very clear. We are going to talk about the role and responsibility of being a SEAL. We're going to look at the timeline, for the way that the work will actually roll out this year. And then we're going to talk about some of the groundwork that we'll need to do before we actually come together, hopefully later in the month. So I think that we should sort of, start off by sort of like acknowledging that for years, if not kind of forever in the history of Aspire, if you teach specials or like electives, there hasn't really been like a standardized, set of content or standards that's been used. And like all of you have also gotten the sort of, school-wide growth or Aspire-wide growth as part of your overall, teacher pies, if you will. And on the one hand, there's a sort of pro to this, right? Because it's nice that you have a lot of freedom with, what you teach. Like, there's no one really, checking up on sort of, the content that you're doing, or, maybe they are, but it's like, like there's no mandate, if you will. And it's also nice that there's sort of no pressure to sort of, teach to some test at the end of the year, right? And that's all, and I think we all know that that's a pressure that, many other teachers feel. On the other side of it, and that's why I sort of have this, seesaw here, is that there's also like little pressure on Aspire as like a larger set of schools to like really, pay for the kinds of coaching and support that would really help people actually drive their practice, right? There's no test, and so there's no accountability, and so as a result, I think that sometimes if you teach, specials, you're sort of seen as being, secondary in a way to math and reading and science and everything else, right? And then on top of that, obviously, as we all know, the SGP scores that you've gotten for the last, 2 or 3 years under these sort of new systems don't really measure what you're actually teaching in your, classroom. So that's obviously sort of a major con when we're looking at sort of, creating measures that really measure, the impact that you're having on kids. SGP isn't actually really doing that. So over the last year, actually the last 2 years, we've sort of moved the funding streams and the grants that we use to actually, pay for this work. So it started off 5 years ago, with a grant from the Gates Foundation called the College Ready Promise, TCRP. And then 2 years ago, we actually got a grant to sort of help, continue funding this work from the, federal government. It was called TIF4. And basically, we went out and we said, we have this great system called TCRP, and we feel like it's really effective, but we need some more money to like really, do it over the long term. And we actually got that money from the feds. And as we sort of move into this new, funding stream called TIF, we are really sort of, focusing in on more supports for, specials and electives. So in that, we sort of have, two goals. We want to sort of make sure that all teachers have unique leadership roles that are actually tied to the work they do. And on top of that, that every teacher has the impact that they have on their students sort of rolled up into the overall score that they get at the end of the year. So any questions on this so far?
No, none from Greta. Clear.
Excellent. Thanks, Greta.
I'm all good.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, so within those sort of, two broader goals, we sort of have these sub-goals as they actually relate to student growth. So the first is that, again, we really want to sort of figure out a more robust system to actually support folks that are teaching in, these subjects. The second thing is, as I mentioned, we sort of want to create new, leadership opportunities for folks so they feel like they can keep growing within their work, whether it's sort of in their school or if they want to move into like a leadership role in their region or sort of, like across schools. That's great too. And then last, we want to sort of identify a fair, reliable, and instructionally relevant way of actually measuring student learning. And I think this is really important to call out because I don't think anyone thinks that writing some sort of, bubble test for art is a sort of, like appropriate thing to do. And so our work this year will like really be around, hey, like what is it that you're already doing in your, classrooms to figure out whether or not all of your students are learning at the rate that you expect, and sort of how do we actually capture that. So with that, we also have, I think it's also important to acknowledge things that we sort of, believe about this work as well. So, like, we really believe that all teachers should have the opportunity to be, evaluated based off tools that are really linked to the impact that they're having on their students and their school. So it's not some larger measure of, subjects that you don't teach. It's actually sort of linked to what you're doing every day with your kids. On top of that, it has to be fair, reliable, and useful. And it should be developed by the actual folks in the classroom who will be using these measures. So it's not something that we go out and like buy off the shelf from some outside test maker, or that we just sort of adopt, whole cloth from, some other district. It's something that is really driven by you all as, the actual teachers that are in our schools. And then, the last thing is that we believe that sort of, creating these measures will sort of validate, motivate, and retain our, really great teachers. And then on top of that, I think that there's this sort of sense that if we can do this work well, that it's going to create this pressure for Aspire to sort of create, more supports and better supports for folks who in the past may not have had them. So I want to pause there. Like, does any of this resonate? Do you agree? Is there anything that you would add?
No, I think it's spot on to what we had conversation about last year.
Cool.
Ben? Ben?
Yeah.
This is Ursula. I agree, and I just wanted to add, I wonder if we could at some point look at some of the pieces even in the current TCRP rubric and just make sure that those are also tied to being a better teacher in our fields.
Absolutely. I think it's a great point, and I think it's something that we can definitely explore this year as well.
And I agree with all of this. That's Ruth speaking.
Cool. Thanks, Ruth. Anything else? Any other thoughts?
I think everything looks great. That is exactly what I was thinking about. So from David, it's perfect.
Cool. Thank you, David. Okay, I'm going to keep us moving right along. If you could actually put yourself back on mute, that'd be great. Sounds like everything's good to go. So I will keep going. Okay, so I know that we have these sort of, big ideas, and they're awesome, and we should definitely honor them, but we also should have a sort of, reality check as well. So, to be honest, it's sort of unlikely that Aspire will sort of, be able to fund any sort of, full-time coaches within specials or electives over the next couple of years. It's just not going to happen. And I think we should also acknowledge that any new measures or tools that we sort of, create as a group will cause some kind of friction. Now, why is this? Because there's been no sort of, curriculum, and there hasn't been any sort of, standard test for, many of these subjects. As a result, many teachers are sort of, have sort of been able to experiment and innovate and basically, create all their own content. And that most likely varies across our schools. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just sort of how it is. And as we actually make these sort of, more unified tools, if you will, I think there's going to be some sort of friction around figuring out, like, okay, like, what is it that I'm going to teach this year, and like, how does that align to what I've done in the past? On top of that, any sort of measure that, this work creates or any tools aren't going to align perfectly with the SGP system that's already in place for any teacher who sort of, tested, if you will. And so, it's sort of inevitable that there'll be this process of like us figuring out like how to make sure that everything's fair, if you will. So like it's not sort of easier to teach Spanish than to teach science or math than, PE or something. We just sort of want to make sure that there's a relative degree of alignment in the way that we're measuring student growth across all of our subject areas. But I also think that there's this major, silver lining to this, which sort of outweighs any of the negatives, which is basically this. If we do this work, we're going to create ongoing dialogue between, teachers not only within your subject area, but even between subject areas as well. We're also, again, going to sort of, create this momentum and pressure to sort of identify, better supports for folks. And it's this really unique opportunity that's only available to folks that are teaching, specials and electives that isn't actually available to anyone else. So overall, I think it'll be positive, but we should just acknowledge that, with any new change, there are going to be some bumps in the road as we actually go down this path. Okay. So now I want to get into the sort of like what have other people done in this space, just because I think it's helpful to sort of have some context. So over the last 4 or 5 years, many other districts, I'm sure you've read about New York and Denver and Austin and Washington D.C. All of those large districts have engaged in work that's sort of similar to ours in terms of trying to measure the impact of teachers on student learning. And all of them have had like a different approach to sort of what they do for folks that aren't actually normally tested by the state. So this is art, Spanish, music, PE, drama, etc. So some places have sort of gone out and said, okay, we're going to make regular tests. We're going to sit down and we're going to create an item bank, and we're going to have a bunch of experts come in and write, multiple choice questions for art, or for music, or for physical education. And we're going to have all of our kids sit down and just take these tests, and then we're going to run an analysis that's sort of very similar to the ones that we do for reading and math, and that will be the way that the way that we measure growth. Hillsborough County Public Schools in Florida is probably like the biggest example of this, and then Puck, which is actually part of our alliance within the Los Angeles schools, also does this as well on a sort of much smaller scale. Other folks have basically said, we aren't doing anything. This is just too hard. So if you look at the SBAC tests, if you look at the old STAR tests, and if you look at any number of state tests all over the country, almost none of them have sort of, historically tried to create any sort of end-of-year measures within the subjects that we're actually speaking about today. And then lastly, there's been this sort of new measure called a student learning objective, which has been adopted by lots of districts all over the country. So Austin City Schools in Austin, Texas, Achievement First, which is a major charter network on the East Coast. Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools, which I believe is based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And then actually the New York City Department of Education has also used SLOs as well. And so it's a very popular way of sort of creating a framework to actually measure growth for any subject that isn't normally tested at the end of the year. Okay, so for 2014-15, the work of SEIL will really be piloting a sort of modified version of the SLO process. So I'm sure that you're asking, what are SLOs? First, they're a sort of long-term learning goal that's based off of data that's actually coming from the students that you're teaching that year. Secondly, they're goals that are actually created and then at the end of your teaching are actually measured by the actual teachers that are in the classroom using assessments that they've actually made themselves most often. When they're actually created, these goals are evaluated both for rigor and for quality by some sort of outside evaluator. So in some cases, you are, writing your goals and then you are, submitting them to your principal or to your coach or even to, peer teachers within your, network of schools. And then they're graded based off of some sort of rubric that says, we think this is a level 3 goal, we think it's a level 4 goal, whatever it is. And then lastly, SLOs are really adaptable across many different subject areas and grades. So you can think of SLOs as sort of a framework to actually make goals for your students. It's not a sort of boilerplate mandate that you have to teach in a certain way or that you have to assess students in a certain way. It's really like a sort of vehicle to sort of help you get there. So I'll pause there for a second. Any questions either on this slide or anything from the last couple slides?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
See here, adaptable across subject areas and grade levels. So that's a little confusing to me because, for instance, if I say that I base my entire curriculum as I do off the California Visual and Performing Arts Standards, the VAPA standards, which I've done, and I have student learning objectives based upon those standards, specifically for art, I'm not sure how that would be adaptable any other subject area. And they're individual for each grade level too. They have standards for K1 all the way up to 12 actually, they exist.
Sure, absolutely. So, so I think what you're asking is sort of how is it that you would be able to adapt my goals to other grade levels? And I think the
to other subject areas.
Sure, to other subject areas, great. So I think the beauty of the SLO process is really that you are creating a different set of SLOs for every grade and every subject area. And in fact, it's sort of like not even every grade and every subject. Most often you sort of pick 2 or 3 classes that you want to focus on that year, and you write a goal based off of what you plan to teach and sort of what you already know about those students. And that's different for every teacher, for every class.
Okay, I understand. Okay, now I see. All right.
Cool. Okay, cool, thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. Any other questions so far? Okay, I'm going to keep moving into what a sort of typical SLO cycle looks like. So this is a cycle that you would see usually over anywhere from 4 months to a sort of full year of teaching. And as a teacher, what you do first is you sort of sit down and you identify the actual students that you want to create the SLO for. So you say, okay, I'm going to write an SLO for my, fourth grade art class, for example, this year. And then you would sort of look at any, baseline data that you have for those students. So maybe you have some assessment data from last spring when they were in third grade. Or maybe you have something from the fall. They took some sort of, task at the very start of the year, and you use that to sort of assess where they are, in terms of their skills in art, based off the standards that you actually plan to teach. After that, you sort of move into this second phase, which is you actually write the SLOs for those students, and then also sort of figure out how you are actually going to measure that growth. So you have a goal for these students based off of some standard, and then some measure that will actually align to that standard. So maybe it's a portfolio, maybe it's a rubric, maybe it's some sort of performance task. Maybe they have to create some sort of product at the end. Maybe you are going to write some sort of written test. Whatever it is, you sort of have an idea for how you'll actually measure how much all of your students have actually. After that, your SLOs are actually submitted to some sort of outside person, as I mentioned, and they're rated for both rigor and quality. Over the next month or two, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is, you actually teach what you aim to teach. After that, there's some sort of measure for how much learning has actually happened on the part of your students. And then there's this sort of final rating for the SLO, which is a combination both of sort of how many of your students mastered that skill, and then the rigor and the quality of the goal that you set originally. So it's it's not just I'm going to write some SLO and it'll be really easy and all of my students are going to score a perfect score. It's how many of my kids actually met the objective, and then did I set a really high quality goal for them in that process. So I'll pause there. There was a lot there, I know. Any questions on just the general framework? Okay.
Ben?
Yes.
Hi, this is Greta.
Hi,
I've
Greta.
got a question. Hi. With the Spanish, and I'm going to be very specific about my my discipline.
Sure.
There are like 5 main things that we have to hit every year, and I was just wondering, we have, the mastery in just, when I set goals, and I've been doing this now for a while because I am evaluated, and my principal does look at my, all these goals and everything as I'm evaluated every year. So I'm a bit happy on the fact that you're putting this out now. Is that because some subject areas are not evaluated or not, when observations are done, this is not in there?
And
I'm
so,
just kind of confused on that one because I've always had it in like even when I am observed every year. I mean, all these have been in there already for me. So I was just wondering if this is something that I would be doing specifically for Spanish now, or in addition to?
So it would be something that you'd be doing for the sort of classes that you actually select. So it sounds like that might align with some work that you're already doing. And I would just note that I think that many sites have their own sort of practices around goal setting and actually measuring student growth. And we are sort of exploring this process across all of our schools as a way to sort of more formally capture that and see if it's something that we could roll out to everyone.
Okay, wonderful. And my second question is, if there were, some part of the testing that I would love also to see, so that I could study results and see, study data, which I don't have any of, would we get the kind of training necessary so that we can actually create that kind of, or have that program in place? I know that some other subjects do, where they just, everything is input and then they can get the results. And study the data from that. That's something that we can actually get either training or access to that type of resources.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll say that, like at the very start of this process, we'll sort of like ask everyone to go out and find some sort of, baseline data about their students. And then at the end of the process, it's actually the, teachers themselves. So it's you who are going in and, grading the tests or, looking at the data and saying, okay, it seems like, 20 out of 26 students, met this goal based off of this assessment.
Okay, and that would also still allow us to have the autonomy to create other things besides, because I don't want to just teach a class as, data-driven, but I'd like to see that, I'd like to be able to study that, and so that I can set goals according to that. But I would like to know that we will still have that freedom to incorporate other things that do work.
Yes, absolutely. And
okay?
Yes, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And those are all, very good questions. So, thank you for those. Okay, I'm going to keep us moving right along. All right, so what's the timeline for the SEIL pilot this year? So in October, hopefully later this month, we'll have everyone in the same room so we can just, lay some groundwork for the year. After that, sort of November and onward, we'll actually be developing the SLOs for the target classes that we actually hope to focus on, and hopefully we'll also be thinking about the measures that we want to use at the end of the year. In January, we'll hopefully have our second in-person collaboration day to just sort of, review all the SLOs that we made and make sure that everyone's on the same page for actually launching the process. From January through sort of mid-May, that's when you'll actually be doing the teaching that will be linked to the SLOs that you write. And then in May, we will assess student outcomes, and you all will actually submit results, and we'll sort of create overall scores based off of that. And then we'll have our third and final day, probably early June, late May, where we'll come back and just talk about the process and how to go, and what was helpful, and obviously what wasn't, and where to actually go next year in 2015-16. And of course, throughout all this, we'll be having regular, virtual sessions. Hopefully, I am shooting for once a month. It may end up being, twice a month when we're actually in the middle of, this work for any, brainstorming or other support that we can offer from our end. So that's the sort of, timeline for the year. And I just want to, call this out. I think I've probably, harped on this before. But while we were sort of, thinking about this process of, creating SLOs and measuring student growth, we sort of realized that like this could really be the springboard for a larger, support system for specials and electives. So what I would imagine and sort of hope is that going down the road, so 2015, 16, whenever it is, that those teachers who serve this year as SEILs will sort of become the torchbearers and leaders for this work next year. And we sort of won't only make it only about actually measuring growth, but it'll sort of be if you're a SEIL, you end up being in a sense like the regional lead teacher for your region. So it's like a leadership opportunity, and also just a way to sort of again like create that pressure and momentum within Aspire as a whole to really engage more deeply with these subject areas. So that's my little call out. It's sort of unclear, like where that will go, but just know that that's sort of first and foremost, at least in my mind, and I certainly hope that it is in yours as well. Okay, so where do we start? So on Friday, after I've had a chance to catch up with everyone else who isn't able to actually join us this afternoon, you will receive a survey. And here's what it'll ask. It'll ask, what standards are you planning to actually teach this year? What is the content that you'll use, or what sort of pacing guides do you have to actually help you in that work? And then, do you have any initial plans to actually measure student learning along the way? On on this survey, there are no right answers, there are no wrong answers. I just want to call out that this is only for us to sort of have a sense for what everyone's doing so that we know how to best support you going forward. And it should be, I'd imagine it's like a 20-minute to 30-minute survey, so I definitely wouldn't take it, Friday, last thing at the end of the day, especially if you're in the Bay. I know that you all are going on break. So just, find some time either over break or soon when you can sit down and really give your best answers on that. Okay, so that's the survey. And then prior to our first meeting, which again, hopefully in early October, and I'm sorry, I'm actually mixed up. After our first meeting in October, here's what we will have done. So after that meeting day, we will all have had a chance to share the content and instructional practices that we are already using with each other, i.e. like other folks on the team. We're going to go over the rubrics that we'll use to actually evaluate the quality and the rigor of our goals, and we may modify those sort of as we go. We'll sort of work to identify the baseline data that you all may be using to actually start setting your goals, and hopefully we'll have a chance to sort of start thinking about not only which classes you actually want to write SLOs for, but sort of which measures you want to use. So prior to that, obviously that will take some sort of work to actually get ready for. And so what I'll be asking for prior to that meeting in October is that you actually do the following. So pick 2 subject areas or grades. So this could be 3rd grade and 5th grade. It could be Spanish 1 and Spanish 4. Just 2 grade levels that you feel like you really want to focus on this year. Maybe they're ones that you sort of struggled with in the past, or there's like a unique challenge about a certain class, whatever it is. You just want to pick 2 and do these things. Identify whatever standards or learning goals that you have for this class for the 2nd semester. So this is not for right now. This is from January to May. You want to finalize any sort of scope and sequence or pacing guide that you have for these 2 classes. You want to think about the outcome measures that you would use to assess student learning. And I should say that this isn't for like every single standard that you plan on teaching. We will ask you just to pick like 2 or 3 things within that actual grade level that you are going to focus on to actually write your objectives. And this could be, like in terms of the outcome measures, it could be a lot of things. It could be a rubric, it could be some sort of portfolio, it could be a video, it could be some sort of performance task that is like evaluated by yourself or by peers. It sort of obviously could be some sort of written test, or it could be some sort of combination of all 4 of those, or it could be something else. It's sort of on you just to sort of think about like what the best measure actually would be. And I think that's actually it for homework. So I'll be sending this out to all of you hopefully on Friday, along with a sort of example for what this might look like. And you'll just want to have made sure that you sort of have this in place by the time that we all come together at the end of the month. So I'll pause there. Any questions, comments, thoughts there?
I have a question. This is Kathleen.
Sure.
Within the group of people on the SEIL team, are there more than one person in each of the specialties areas?
There are. It sort of varies by subject area. So physical education, I think, has the largest. I think there are 5. There are 2 or 3 for fine arts, 1 for music, and I think Greta is the only one doing Spanish. So that's sort of where it lies, and so what I'm doing right now is actually going out and trying to find some other folks to actually fill in on those subjects that aren't sort of full up yet. But I think at least for PE, we should have a lot of folks on.
Okay, and who do you have for music?
I think Ursula actually teaches music. Is that right?
No, that's me. That's Rita.
Oh, that's Rita. I'm so sorry. I had that mixed up. Yep, it's Rita at BMA.
Okay. So maybe we can chat a bit more about getting a second person for each area on board so that there's somebody that you're sharing your rubrics and portfolios who's in the same line of work.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Awesome. And then our other members that we were discussing with yesterday might be able to pull some information from those people as well.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's a great call. Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. When you say that there's several in the arts, is it, are there several in the visual arts? Or?
Yeah, so Cynthia, I think that you are the only one who's sort of in the storytelling and drama.
Yes.
And I think that's partly because we only have 2 or 3 teachers across Aspire that are sort of in that genre. So I think maybe it's best if you and I sort of connect offline and figure out if there's like another way around it.
Yes, I noticed that there was a dance teacher. Is that accurate? In the list of folks?
I would have to double check. I don't have that, I don't have that, right at the very tip of my brain.
Okay. Is there another visual arts teacher?
Yes, I know Shannon Pursley at Eris is on board, and there's another one in the Valley that I would also have to check on.
Okay.
So Ben, I think I have the list that we used for collaboration in July.
Right.
When we did that together, so maybe we can put our heads together either tomorrow afternoon or on Friday morning to look at that list a little bit. I have a couple of ideas around that as well.
I think it sounds great. So
Okay.
I'll just make a note to get in touch with you, Kathleen. And if there's anyone else on the line who sort of has folks that you think would also be great for this work, please reach out. And I kind of try and get them involved, or if you want to send them, I can email as well. That would be great.
I have a different question. This is Cynthia. Are you going to forward this PowerPoint to us?
Yes. So I'll
Okay.
send out this PowerPoint, and I'll send out a recording of this webinar as well.
Thank you.
You feel like you would like to watch. Okay. So we are getting close to the end, and I want to thank you all so much for your patience and for staying on the line this afternoon. So let's keep going. So as far as our first meeting, the exact day is still TBD, and I think you'll see why in a minute. I will have this finalized by Friday, and I hope to actually get some feedback from you all this afternoon on that as well. The location for our first meeting is the home office in Oakland from 9:30 to 4. And again, we will cover any travel costs, subs, or if you're not coming in on a day that you don't normally work, then we can also pay you for your time as well with a one-off stipend. And just on that day, I'll also send this out. But if you just bring your laptop, your homework, and a spirit of adventure and innovation, that is really all that you'll need. So my sort of last thing before we go into any questions is just, so here's our poll.